Welcome to the materials for the companion piece to Newton Lee's Transhumanist Handbook. This is many wonderful contributors, including my guest. Joe Bardin is the Director of Communication at RADFest and People Unlimited. He's an author. His chapter in this book, Drinking from the Air, very poignant, very powerful. You know, the last person that I interviewed was Michael Rose, and he had a strategy of kind of maybe almost scaring people straight a little bit in some of his talks. But I think possibly even a more powerful strategy is to move people very deeply. And I think you have the right idea there, Joe. Welcome, Joe Bardin. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Good to be with you, Ben.
Yeah. Tell us for the people who haven't had a chance to pick up the Transhumanist Handbook yet, tell us about Drinking from the Air.
Yeah, so Drinking from the Air, which I was really happy to have included in the Transhumanism Handbook, edited by Newton Lee, is an essay that I wrote that is about really capturing the personal engagement with immortality, with radical life extension, and sort of how this plays out in people's minds and in our lives. The title, Drinking from the Air, is taken from what happens with the redwoods, which is that there was a mystery about how these magnificent, long-lived redwood trees actually were able to get moisture up to the upper reaches of these trees. And they found out eventually that they weren't just drinking from their roots. They were actually drinking moisture from the air. And that's a metaphor for, I think, what we need to do as immortalists and transhumanists, which is we can't just draw from our roots. We can't just learn from our past. In a way, we have to draw from our futures. But the essay, so it's really a fundamental change in how we think and in our being intellectually is what's called for. If you're an immortalist and a transhumanist, which I think is fantastic and exciting because it takes us out of repetitive ways of being. There's certain ways our mind works that we think of as logic that is really just patterns of thinking. And among other things, we need to break out of those patterns. But the essay is about the idea that we, as human beings, were able to long for a transcendence of mortality a long time before we could do anything about it. And that as a result of this, we really applied a lot of our intelligence and our genius to accommodating our mortality, to making accommodation with our mortality. And now when we're starting to have the capability to challenge aging, and clearly aging, it no longer needs to be viewed as an inevitability, we need to change all that. So we've created a culture and a society and a psychology that's really invested in making death okay, and we need to take all those resources and really invest them in displacing aging and death. That's a lot of what the essay is about.
Excellent. And a moment ago, we were talking about your organization, RADFest, and you know that I'm a fan. A supporter and participant in every way that I possibly can. Yeah. And the RADFest is a pretty good example of the kind of sentiment that you're talking about, because it's a hard science focus. It's a futurism and ending cell death focus. And yet there is also this culture. And there is also this idea that we need to inspire people so that we will have this critical mass. We need a certain number of people in our country and in the world to be working towards life extension to make it a near-term reality. As the closer that we can move that goalpost to us by doing this kind of outreach, the better. And I think that you have a keen understanding of this. Could you tell us your feelings about how we can bring about this kind of positive change?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up. I tend to view the cure for aging as not fundamentally just a scientific problem, but it's a people problem or a people challenge, because when enough people are on board with this mission, that's when there's the will, the political will, and the financial will, and the investment to bring the resources to bear that we need to do this. So fundamentally, it's about us. It's about people. And I think we need to engage people emotionally. It doesn't mean the science is important. The science is massively important. But we're not all PhDs in biology, and that's not the only place we meet. So RADFest is a platform for everybody who really wants to tap into longevity now and in the future, where they can get really evidence-based information, but also the inspiration to take action with the information. Fundamentally, we should feel fantastic about what we're doing. We should feel really proud. We should feel proud of the steps we're taking to look beyond the mortality paradigm. And a lot of that really comes from connecting with other people who are like-minded. And that's a big part of what RADFest is about.
And I will say that another pet peeve that I have is placing this conversation in a context of far futurism, because some of these interventions, they exist in prototype form, just a matter of getting them to human trials. And there's all manner of interventions of a smaller degree that we can be working on. And your organizations, you have that focus. You talk to people about what they can be doing, not just emerging biomedicine, but lifestyle considerations. This is a big part of what you do. What's your advice for people in any of those arenas? A lifestyle, what they can be doing to focus on bringing these medicines more quickly down the pipeline. How do you put all of that together?
Yeah, well, great question. So I'm a member of People Unlimited. I'm director of communications for People Unlimited, and People Unlimited is really about being unlimited now, which to us means doing everything you can do right now to live an ageless life and live an ageless mindset. There is age reversal on a limited basis right now. We had a guest speak at People Unlimited, Dr. Mike Chan, who does cell therapy and stem cell therapy. He's probably the foremost authority on this. He's been working since 1985 and has 20 clinics in Asia and Europe. And if you can make organs younger by 8 to 10 years through stem cell and cell therapy, that's age reversal on a limited basis. There's really many things we can do right now to impact our longevity right now. And when we combine that with what we call the exponential arc of technology that Ray Kurzweil is so articulate on, and then we have what we can think of as an exit strategy from death. I think I think you have to take it personally. I think, and that takes a certain level of commitment and even courage to take. I think we have to take this. Sorry.
And broad emotional connection to it.
Yeah.
It's not just a thought exercise.
That's right. It's a beautiful thought experiment, but what we're doing at People Unlimited is making it a way of life. And when you start to do that, you see more opportunities and you see more possibilities. So what we do at People Unlimited is basically jump in. We jump in the deep end. And, I just think that's the best way to live, is jumping in the deep end. If we don't do that, honestly, Ben, what do we have to lose? Really? What do we have to lose?
Yes.
I've heard Jim Stroll's the director of People Unlimited. He says, so what? What if I'm wrong and I die? Well, what does it matter? Are we living for our post-mortem reputation to protect a post-mortem reputation? No, we might as well put ourselves into this fully. And,
Yeah.
um,
And that network effect, that is the best reason why we would say this sort of Pascal's wager type argument, the transhumanist wager, let's say, type argument. That network effect, that critical mass, is the difference, and it's the difference between having, Ray Kurzweil, according to Jose Cordero, according to Ray Kurzweil, I recently interviewed Jose Cordero, believes that he has reached longevity escape velocity as of 2020, and that having that critical mass is the difference between a limited longevity escape velocity and a universal longevity escape velocity 6 months, 18 months from now. This is entirely feasible. Sea changes of this kind have occurred in human history. It's entirely feasible, and it's owing to people with dedication like yourself. Yes.
I think what's important in that, and I love it that Ray Kurzweil feels that way, and it gives me chills. I think it's fantastic, and I feel the same way. I think the key is that we are plugging ourselves in to the very best resources and the very optimized mindset, but we're plugging ourselves to those resources. Look, healthcare in society there's always been better and worse healthcare at every level of society, and there certainly is right now. One thing that happens at RadFest is you get plugged in to these really leading opportunities for age reversal that, frankly, most MDs, let alone people, just don't know about. So when Kurzweil's saying he has escape velocity, in part that's because he's really tapped into the best that's available right now. Yeah. And that's really what we need to do.
Yes. And when I knew that this very famous gentleman was who has had a longstanding life extension mandate, and on a personal level had become effectively, Google doesn't have CTOs, but effectively the CTO of Google, I also got chills. Yeah. I also said maybe, because this was just a few years ago, and my attitude has evolved on life extension. It's something that I said about Jim and about people in your organization yourself, is that you've had a certain foresight that I am willing to admit I did not have 10 years ago. But we are here now, and that was a moment. That was a moment. Ray Kurzweil, being the CTO of Google, I said this is something that could happen in a few years.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and it is. This is an exciting time, and it's a tipping point kind of time, and we're starting to see the kind of scientific findings that support the vision, and that's a powerful combination. So and brilliant people are engaging more and more. I think it's going to become obsolete to really talk about wellness outside of longevity. And right now, those are two separate things. And I think it's ridiculous. It's like you have this thing that's your lifespan, that's a box, and wellness is just going to make it better inside of that box. No, if your wellness modalities work, they're going to extend the boundaries of that box. And I think that's going to be the next phase culturally when we see broader adoption, as we understand that wellness medicine or wellness interventions are longevity interventions, and there is no difference. And we're not just trying to make life better inside of let's say a lifespan of 80 years. We're not just trying to be healthy inside of a prescribed lifespan, but our health just drives that lifespan further and further out.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it reflects a kind of a broad sociological failing that we all tend to engage in, maybe even not realizing that we're doing it. There is not a taboo around to any real degree around taking care of yourself at a certain age. But when it enters into the context of aging, it becomes it becomes something that's more taboo, and it becomes something that's more associated with all manner of sort of dark thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is good to say that we kind of need to tear down that Chinese wall and recognize these as one and the same discipline.
Yeah. I think right now you have to be kind of a free spirit. If you're in your 50s or 60s or 70s or 80s, to think beyond those limitations, and you have to be kind of a free thinking type. Of course, you've got everything to gain by doing that. And then the other piece of the puzzle that is huge is connecting with other people that are thinking this way too. Ultimately, we're social creatures, and we really, what we're trying to do at RadFest and what we do to People Unlimited, we want to socialize immortality. We want to socialize superlongevity. So we're either socializing limitation and mortality, or we're socializing being unlimited lifespans. So we want to. Part of what we're doing is just socializing that idea, so that people can act out on it more fully and not feel penalized in a way socially for being more progressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you and I have met a few times at People Unlimited gatherings.
Yeah.
And we bumped into each other on Saturday at this conference for this book signing and these presentations. Well, Newton Lee was there. He was one of the organizers, along with your organizations and other organizations, Humanity Plus. And I learned a little more about Newton Lee in the course of this, and I'm curious to know if we can talk about People Unlimited Los Angeles. This is kind of an exciting thing that's in the works.
So we're working on developing Newton Lee, who is really doing really an active guy in the transhumanist circles, and really doing a lot of good things, and really looking to make an impact. And he sees the value of community and the importance of community in establishing this longevity lifestyle, this ageless mindset. And so so he came to us at People Unlimited and says, well, you guys have this and you're doing this. Why reinvent the wheel? Let's do a People Unlimited LA. So, we're at the very beginning of that, and we'd love to see that happen.
Yeah, that's exciting. And Newton Lee, he's also the chair of the California Transhumanist Party. He's a tremendous scientist in his own right. Yeah. I was lucky enough also to interview him for this very same podcast.
Yeah.
And so it's wonderful. I know life extensionists in Los Angeles. I'm sure they'd be excited to partake in those events. So that's really exciting news.
Yeah.
That's yeah. I was so happy. I was so happy with the way this conference turned out. I think everyone really had a wonderful time.
It was interesting and fun and stimulating, and it was an interesting range of subjects that were covered. And I think we talked about at the moment, it was sort of a transhuman. It was sort of trans category.
Transhuman.
Very nice. The implications of what we're doing, the implications of radically extending life, obviously impact on everything. And that's fundamentally what's exciting to me. Of course, saving life is brilliant, but just the idea that we are not limited to the repetition of the previous generations, is, I think, worth pursuing in every way.
And I've been repeating this message in this campaign, presidential campaign with the Transhumanist Party. My platform is the Futurist New Deal, and it's a number of policy initiatives. But sometimes I'm saying it, and I'm not sure if people are hearing it, that all of these policy initiatives were very carefully crafted with a mind towards setting the stage for a country that can support life extension. And there's so many things that we can be doing as a society to elevate this, to enhance the prospects, the nearest term prospects of a longevity escape velocity, and what your organizations do. I'm so much looking forward to October and RadFest. It's going to be a great time. Always, like you said, a diversity of experiences aside from delving into the issues around ending cell death and related hard science presentations. A lot of exciting stuff going on. Can you give us any other little tease of the excitement that we can expect?
Oh yeah, there's this year there's first of all, the presenters are fantastic. They're top caliber. Right off the top of my head, there's going to be a panel on sexuality and longevity that I think is going to be really interesting for people. Not directly related to that in any way. There's a panel on pet longevity.
Great. The people are interested in this. Yeah.
People are interested. There's some really interesting work being done. I think there's some really interesting stem cell findings that people are going to be interested to hear about. The whole senolytic equation is being refined, and people are going to want to hear the latest thinking on sort of what's the optimum way to do senolytics. There's going to be some great performances. There's just it's a really full schedule. It's loaded from top to bottom. We're just trying to figure out how to fit it all in. So it's going to be the full experience for sure.
Yeah, I have my business partner, Stace NG. She's a USTP, and she's come to our meetings as well. She's a microbiologist, very interested in senolytics. We have a biotech startup. We just our setting up our lab was delayed by a few months. It was a little upsetting, but we just got our stuff, so we're ready to hit the ground running with starting to work on some of this stuff a little more too. And she's already made a tremendous contribution there, I think. Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of actually just happened while we were away. That this stuff was that we got our lab set up, so it's kind of exciting.
There's a lot of this kind of movement happening, which is very important to have these companies come into being. We're seeing sort of a first generation of practitioners who are starting to put together more complete protocols for anti-aging and age reversal. It's been a bit ad hoc at this point. We're having to sort of be semi-experts, but that's happening too. And some of those sort of more systematic approaches are going to be presented at RadFest as well. And there's also Rad Clinic, which is going to connect people to practitioners. You can actually get some of the treatments modalities on site. And along with that, you actually meet practitioners who can help guide you the rest of the year, which is finding practitioners who know their stuff in this space is really valuable too. So, but congratulations on your company. That's exciting.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we could check back with me in 18 months, and I'll let you know if making me go broke or not. No.
Big challenge.
But yes, yeah.
Big adventure.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit about interventions along the lines of senolytics, interventions of different kinds. It brings to mind something that we discussed in when we were spitballing what the thrust of this company would be. And there's a product, a CBG, that not everybody realizes. They hear about these cannabinoids, and sometimes their minds go to that's something for someone else. But CBG has a neuroprotective quality and has no narcotizing effect. And they're really doing a lot more study of these lesser known cannabinoids as they're being a little more identified, and realizing that a lot of them have some interesting properties. But yeah, that's there's so many great every month we're finding out a new possibilities for something that is effectively an age reversal kind of intervention.
That's right.
That is the big one. Neurodegeneration is a concern that we don't we don't have fully addressed.
Of course. And each one of these applications that potentially buys a bit of time is part of the equation. It's part of the ongoing exponential development. So even just delaying aspects of aging is hugely valuable when we look at it in the larger context, which is what we're able to do now. I think that's the difference. Is now we can start thinking about this in terms of escape velocity. Hey, if you buy 5 more years of cognitive health, cognitive well-being, that 5 years could lead to 50 years, and on and on. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. I know a lot of people who are who have worked with RADFest, who have worked with People Unlimited, who have also worked with other organizations who have an Alcor plan. It came up in the debate, and I want to get your opinion on this. One candidate said that we should be publicly subsidizing Alcor type interventions, cryonics interventions. And there was a question in the debate. I said that we could very well at scale be using that quantity of money to create any number of maybe more near-term interventions. And I do feel that cryonics is very important in the private sector, and it's a good choice. But in these, when it comes to policy, these matters sometimes become a bit more complicated.
It is complicated. That's one thing we do with RADFest and with the Coalition for Radical Life Extension, which is the nonprofit that presents RADFest, is we don't pick winners and losers. And I don't think we're there. I don't think we know. I think we know that in general, exploring all these different avenues is right on. That's, if we're talking about evidence-based decision making, that's what we know. So and so I think it's important right now to broaden the conversation, not narrow it, in terms of options and modalities, and we'll find out. We'll find out. I think we'll find out where the investment is most drives the most value. Another thing they're doing at RADFest is through Bill Falloon and Life Extension Foundation is putting in place this data gathering. We need biomarkers. We need measurability. A lot of people are doing a lot of things, and we need to get data. And so that's a big emphasis. I know Bill Falloon's working on that for RADFest and beyond, which is another reason to be there. I mean, it's just like your data. We say you matter, and this is a really good example. Your data matters, right? We want to learn from what you're doing, you and everybody out there, and what's impacting on those biomarkers. So.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you bring that up, because just about 2 hours ago in Estonia, my ticket partner, my VP, she's my VP, I'm her VP. Should either of us win? It gets a little confusing. But she was in Estonia presenting to. Estonia has a very, very good level of digitalization in their civil society and government. It's at the highest of any in the world, and it's advanced to such a degree that they are now able to be using data science and constant monitor, on the verge of being able to use constant monitoring and oversight for citizens. This is something, my grandmother used to say, an ounce of prevention, and also Ben Franklin, is worth a pound of cure. And this is the truth. This is an ultimate truth of immortalism. If we are able to not be triaging everyone, but be just monitoring them constantly, we can have a public health service that is much, much less expensive and is ultimately creates a nation of immortalists. And she had this data science presentation They had her there for 4 hours giving this presentation. I know she's exhausted now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but it's about this kind of integration and about these kind of interventions, and it's very, very exciting. It's a very, very exciting time.
Yeah, and that's game changing. I mean, that's game changing. So we have to be able to think past what we're in right now. And I think that's a big challenge, and we have to accept that there's these massive unknowns, but they're massive in what could be in our favor. And so, yes, the scenario alone you're describing is potentially a game changer. So there's it's time to think those ways. It's time to think in those ways.
Yeah, yeah, and I honestly think that that kind of implementation, maybe not in Estonia. I talked to Paul Spiegel and interviewed him. Talked to him a few times, and also interviewed him for this podcast. And we described this. One small nation state. There's a few in Europe that would fit the bill besides Estonia, even quite a bit smaller, that have those good public health outcomes already, relatively speaking, and they implement this public health service that is prevention based, that is constant oversight based, that is full digitalization and data science integration. They do this, and they have then a nation of life extensionists. As it stands out as a shining city on the hill to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world says, "What are we doing? Our people are dying. These people are living." And it's very cheap. It's cheaper to do it this way. We could be advancing the cause, I think, so much by creating a sort of isolated reality show, so to speak, in the form of a small country. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful that transhumanism can help with sort of framing those cases, because I don't think right now those kind of conversations are not happening in the political arena in the United States. So possibly the Transhumanist Party could help inject some of that kind of perspective, and which would be really useful.
And there's been a little bit of anxiety in recent weeks and months about the role of the Transhumanist Party. I've seen it on a few threads. Some very prominent people, in some cases, saying this. And I want to take a moment and say that I am dedicated to life extension, and also dedicated to putting forward a serious-minded face to these organizations. And I also want to thank you for your organization for being a friend to the Arizona Transhumanist Party. Yeah. And Jim, I can't speak for everyone, but Jim has been a real friend to my campaign by allowing me to present and join him at some of his recent events. It's been really really a wonderful thing to get to know you guys.
Yeah, and we appreciate the work you're doing, and we appreciate what the Transhumanist Party stands for and is pursuing. So keep up the good work.
Well, thank you, sir. I hope I can count on your vote. Yeah. I shouldn't do that on camera, right?
Vote for you, Ben.
Oh, you break my heart. Thank you, sir. Thank you. We have fun. Well, it's been wonderful, Joe, talking to you. Do you have anything else? Any message that you feel has been overlooked in the course of this weekend, or generally as far as the upcoming RADFest event in October, or generally something that you wanted to get out there?
Well, our big challenge with transhumanists is to activate people. It's great that people have opened their minds and are thinking in a bigger way, but we need to get more people more activated and more connected. And so I would just encourage people to come to RADFest. It's October 3rd to the 6th in Las Vegas. You will meet people that you will make important connections, you will learn important information, and we all need to step up. We all need to be more activated. Sometimes you got to get off the computer. Sometimes you got to show up and take on the lifestyle and take on the lifestyle of an activist. So I think that's where we are we call it a revolution. It is a revolution. Honestly, if you're just a consumer of this information, we appreciate it. I'm sure you appreciate it, but there's more. So we want to encourage everybody to become an activist. And part of that is being at RadFest and being a part of the revolution and everything that happens there. And people come out of RadFest, we all get clear about what our mission is as individuals and collectively. So I'm looking forward to that.
Very nice. And RadFest is in October. Tickets are still available. It's in Las Vegas. And, I know some of the people who are organizing a transhumanist party stuff in Las Vegas. So we should put a bug in their ear for that to be the next People Unlimited chapter to open. I said this to Jim in these interviews and these discussions. We need People Unlimited organization in every major city in the United States because that critical mass it's the difference. In some cases, it might be the difference between people who we love very much surviving to the radical life extension. We want to bring that. We want to bring that closer to them. We want to bring that closer to all of us. We want everyone to have that joyous experience. Yes. Thanks, Joe. It was good talking with you. Thanks for sitting down and doing this. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. My pleasure.